Okay, so this is the follow-up video for our Guess the Method trick number 8 in our Guess the Method series that we've had going on this summer. And I just want to point out at first, right off the bat here, that this can be accomplished a lot of different ways, and you can really arrive at the exact same effect using extremely easy methods. The reason why I did it the way I did it was because I wanted to show you that it could be done impromptu, that you could do this in front of people with a shuffle deck in use without actually appearing to obviously handle the cards in any way. That your handling of the cards would seem completely innocent and there wouldn't be any reordering of the cards from the moment that the spectators shuffle. And I really like that possibility. Also, there's a certain manner in which the presentation that I gave you puts some focus, I think, psychologically on this little doodad right here. That if the spectators can be thinking about a prop or a gimmick, that's all the better way to get their mind off of the possibility of a simple card force, which is what this was. There is a force involved in this where it's just merely forcing a preset prediction. Now, there are some expensive apparatus out there that can take a free selection from a spectator and determine or be subtly programmed to reflect their selection. This is just a cheapo broken watch. You could go to a drugstore, go to just a pharmacy and find the cheapest, $6 watch that they have there, find it a lady's size, and take the bands off and take the battery out, and you're ready to rock and roll on this. Now, in terms of presentation, you could also use something a little bit more classy and flashy, like a pocket watch that is stopped. You could pull the battery from it so that you can set the time. Alternatively, and of course this would make to have a very interesting kind of story to go along with that for your intrigue, you could do that. Another possibility is to use a watch that's working. You could have a spectator take any analog watch that has a stem on it, and they could program it and set it to a time, or you could merely have them pull a stem, or you could pull the stem on yours and freeze the time, and then that would be your prediction. And the last possibility is that if you're thinking ahead enough and you want to take enough risk, you could use a watch or clock that's working, and if you work 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes ahead on the beginning of your trick, you can have a prediction that will match the time that it is at the exact moment that the reveal is made. So good luck with that. The problem with that is you can never know what a spectator will do that will take up time. So whether you prepare a prediction like that or try to do it on the spot, good luck. That's a little bit of risk that's beyond what I would want to do. But anyway, these are all the possibilities for style of presentation. Now, to what I did, and let's cover the easiest way to do this. If this is a prediction, the easiest way to do it is to have a force that is already predetermined. Now, let me first show you why I came up with the numbers that I did. If you look at my clock here, my watch, the second hand is at 53 seconds. And unfortunately, the way this works with the stem does not function, it does not make the second hand move. That's pretty standard for an analog watch. So I can move the hour and I can move the minutes, but I cannot move the seconds. So I'm stuck with 53 if I want the seconds to be in my prediction. So what I did is I came up with the smallest number of cards to account for the number of the hour and the minutes. And the way I handled that was 4 cards instead of 5, 4 cards to have 53 seconds, 10 for the minutes, because it's a higher number, but it's a single card. You could probably use a jack or queen, but it might make it kind of confusing for 11 or 12, but I used a 10, and then 4 for the hour. And the reason why I picked those cards is because since 5 and 3 is already taken, I didn't want to, in an impromptu setting, have to call an additional 5 or a 3. So I didn't want to use the 5 or the 3 hour or any minute selection that had 5 and 3 in it. So I wanted to have 4 separate cards that I would have a good chance at acquiring in one spread of the deck. So that gets us to the method. The method is a spread cull. And you know from this channel, if you've watched it for any amount of time, that I love doing the spread cull. If there was one card maneuver that I could only ever use for the rest of my life, I would want it to be that, because you can do a million things with just that one move. And acquiring cards in this way is one of them. So, our method. Actually, before I do that, very quickly, let me deal with the force method, the preset force. Let's get our cards out. You can use any set that you want. It really doesn't matter. Especially if it's going to be preset, you could use as many cards as you want. You could have, 4, 25, 2, 5, 53, and have it, nice and long. But let's get this set here. My prediction was 4, 10, 5, 3. And you can see I actually in one spread was able to find all those cards. So the likelihood is good that you would hit them. So 4, 10, 5, 3. Now if you were going to do this with a preset deck, you would have them one of two ways. You could force them from the bottom so that you're doing them from the face like what we did in the example, or you could force them from the top. If you force them from the top, you would have them in this order. I would have these set on the top of the deck. I could probably do a shuffle with a top stock retention, just holding on to those top few cards each time that I riffle, so that it looks like I am shuffling the deck, but I'm actually maintaining only the cards I need on top. Do a false cut or something like that. Nothing too terribly flashy to give yourself away. And then probably the best force for this, after you've made your prediction, the best force for this might be the Crisscross Force, where you have a spectator cut the deck somewhere in the middle, and then at that point you would say, you give them the lie that goes with the Crisscross Force. You say, I'm going to complete the cut and hold on to the break that you've made. Now, the lie in that is that they have not made a break. They actually made a break here, and you are creating a break. So that's a really good line. I'm going to complete the cut and hold the break that you've made. At that point, you would want to go to the watch and explain, the significance of the watch, whatever backstory you want to give it. You would show the time, and this is the perfect delay for a Crisscross Force, which operates best with a delay of time. And then you would go through your settings on here. Of course, I didn't set it right at the beginning, but we have 4, 10, 53, go through the hours, the minutes, and the seconds, cover all of that, and then you would open up and you say, let's take a look at this break that you've made, and then you could show the cards 4, 10, 53, and so on. That is one way to do it. Another way would be to use a different force. So you could do a Riffle Force, for example, and the best way to do a Riffle Force is probably to cut half the deck and then do a couple of other kick cuts on top of it, holding the break after the first cut, so that it seems to be a mix going on rather than just a cut and then a selection. And then you ask them to stop as you riffle through. It doesn't matter where they say stop. All you're going to do is lift up at your break and push forward, and that's the section that you're going to reveal from. So that is the Riffle Force. Really any force that you want that would get you to the location where you have your cards would be adequate. Another one you could do would be the ever popular Hindu Shuffle Force, where all these cards are on the bottom, and you would say, please tell me when to stop. They would say right there, you'd say right at the spot, okay, we're going to use these cards. And then you can turn it over and show the cards. So any force that you think will pass with your spectators would be good for this, for a prepared version. Now, let's take a look at what I did. So, I had these cards truly in the deck, spread out, who knows where, because the deck was shuffled by the spectator. Now, the call works great in acquiring cards, and the call works great in also forcing cards. So we're going to look at both sides of this, and I'm going to show you my nuanced approach to forcing with the call that gets rid of one of the big tells that can be part of a cull force that is undesirable. So, first thing we want to do is the deck is shuffled. I would take the deck back, and I know I need to get a 4, 10, 5, and a 3 in that order. So as I'm explaining that everything is mixed up, and that the cards have value, I would start culling. So I'm going to cull my 4, and then as I'm going through and I'm talking, you need to be able to cull and talk at the same time. I'm going to grab my 10, and then I'm going to grab a 5, and I might not hit it because I just saw a few 3s go by. 5, and then I need to get one more 3. And this is perfect. I actually didn't get it. Okay, I came to my first 5 before I had 3s left. That's okay. You just stop, you square up, and you go back and start again as you're talking. And now what I need to do is I need to get a 3. So the first 3 I come to, I call it in. So I have my other cards already on top, 4, 10, 5. I grab my 3. you can look for spread cull tutorials on my channel, or you can look for it on anywhere on YouTube and find good tutorials for that. So I've got my 3. And then you're going to do something that I do here that prepares me for a really clean force. I'm going to cull 4 indifferent cards on top of my last card. So I'm going to cull 1, 2, 3, 4, anywhere after my last card. And usually with those numbers, 4, 10, 5, 3, because they're all different, 4, 10, 5, 3, there's no repeating numbers, I usually would be able to hit that before I get to the end, and I would be able to get 4 cards on top of it in my call. So you're culling multiple cards, hopefully in one pass, to get into this situation. 4, 10, 5, 3, 4 indifferent cards. This would be done without anybody suspecting anything, as you're explaining that everything is mixed up and explaining number values. At this point, you're prepared to then do your force. Okay, so the force will work like this, and this is what makes it better than most others. The typical way to do a cull force is if I'm forcing the top card or a group of cards, I would have to take those cards off or that card off and put it underneath the spread. And that's a really significant tell for the force. The other possibility is extremely hard to do, and I don't really know why people do it, and that is to pull the bottom card or cards off the bottom and then stick them in at the selection point. That's extremely hard to do. So here's the easy way to do it. If you're doing a cull force, it means you're probably good at a cull. So what is it to cull out and then cull in again? It's really not that hard. I'm going to cull my I'm going to spread my 4 indifferent cards as cover, and then I'm going to begin culling. 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are my 4 cards of interest, 4, 10, 5, 3 underneath. And then I continue to spread. This is totally clean. There's no discrepancies in this whatsoever. They would then indicate where they want to stop. I can break cleanly. Now, this is really fascinating because normally when you do something like this and you stop at a point, the focus would be on this packet or on this card. But we're not going to do that. This is going to be a little bit of an off-putting kind of a scenario here. I'm going to break very fairly here and set that pack down, and then I have a reason to square these up. And I can show the bottom of this pack and use those cards. So it's a very innocent-looking way to force. And it's kind of removed from the typical cull force situation. I'm ready for my reveal here, 4, 10, 5, 3. It's very different from the typical situation where, let's say I was going to force, using my method here, the 7 of spades. I would spread my 4 cards, then I would pull my 7, and then I would spread. See how clean that is? They would stop me at a place, and this is the other tell to a cull force. The squaring up and then the showing of the card underneath. Okay, so it avoids that by breaking out that section, setting down the cards, and then squaring up and turning it over and going for a packet. You might even delay that. You might just set that down and give a little bit of a delay so they forget what they've done, turn it over at their break, and then count off from there. So that is my kind of approach to a cull force, which looks a lot more like a classic selection. A couple of other things while I have you here on the cull force. If I wanted to, say, force the 7 of hearts, I have it set with my cover. I would spread my 4, cull out my 7, and spread through. If it's just doing one card as a cull force, and they say stop here at this card, one thing to do is get your fingers far back on your 7, or on your force card, pull them back underneath, and then when you go to square, push with your hand or the cards, but not all the way in, and push out on your force card in the action of turning over. And it looks a lot more innocent than doing this, which a lot of people do. Okay, so think more about pushing the card outward to where the selection was at as you turn it over, and it can take some of the suspect behavior out of that force, make it a little bit more accessible. So there it is. That's what I did, and those are some possibilities for this trick. I wish you the best of luck and happy magicking.